Hello and welcome to Dice Masters United. I'm Spug.
I'm Ben.
I'm James.
And I'm Peter.
Coming up in this episode,
we reflect on the stunning success of three of our gang at the recent Roll for the North online tournament and consider where the event leaves the modern meta.
We then turn our attention to salivating over some spoilers from the upcoming Dark Phoenix set that have dropped in the past few days, and chat about some of the cards that look like they might make waves in the current card pool.
All that and more in the latest episode of Dice Masters United.
Okay, well, we come to you slightly delayed in this episode because we were taking part, well, three of us were taking part in the Roll for the North event over the weekend. And this was an online Dice Masters event hosted by DM North. So thank you very much to them for putting it on. And it kind of doubled up as the sort of equivalent of the Canadian Nationals, which obviously would have been taking place in person around about this time, but for obvious reasons, they haven't. And it turns out that the DM United crew, the three of us who played, well, fared rather well. Peter managed to finish 5th. James reached the heady heights of 2nd. And Ben managed to bring home all the bacon. He won all the marbles. He took home the big kahuna. He managed to take top spot. So, congratulations, all three of you. How did you find the event?
It was a lot of fun. Is the meta was a bit Godcatcher heavy, but I had some good games, lots of back and forth, and I was prepared for the Godcatcher. I brought my own.
You did. And broadly, Ben and James, how did you find it?
Yeah, good. I enjoyed it. Honestly, I was in two minds about whether I was going to participate. So I've been a bit busy, and I thought maybe I should spend more time with my family, but I decided not to. And I enjoyed it actually. I played what I played because I wanted to have fast matches and breaks and time that I could spend with my wife and daughter in between, and I managed to achieve all of that. So,
excellent.
So I was quite pleased.
So you played a Godcatcher Smash Mouth team. We'll talk about that briefly. And Ben,
I did it for empathic reasons. Rather than
of course,
because you're an all-star.
That's what I am.
You're considering the needs of others. That's very kind of you. And Ben, overall, I'm guessing your experience would have been pretty good based on where you finished.
It's surprising, I would say. I wasn't expecting as many Godcatchers as I saw, but also repetitive because I saw a lot of Godcatchers, and also quite competitive. There was, I didn't quite manage a clean sweep. I drew my last game, but there were quite a few people on 4 wins, so it was quite close, and a lot of people going into the last round, quite possibly close to winning as well.
Yeah, it was very much kind of nip and tuck at the end, which is really interesting because there was like 30 players, which is really good turnout. Yeah. Again, it does seem like these events are getting really good support, which is excellent. You know, there's like 30 players for that. There's a similar number for the UK Games Expo equivalent a few weeks ago, and we had similar numbers for other 2 tournaments that took place earlier in the year. So it's, well, in fact, one of them got nearly 50, didn't it? One of the events.
Yeah, and again, like the last few have been well run, efficient, didn't take too long. But there's some things we talk about with the rulings for what happened in the tournament, I think. Yeah. Particularly the 4 match races. But overall, good time. And I think the kind of draft thing they do at the end, not draft.
The raffle.
The raffle, thank you. Yeah, prize draw at the end makes it worthwhile hanging around.
Yes, everybody's within a chance of winning something at the end. So, Peter, let's start with you. What did you play, and how did your afternoon kind of broadly pan out?
It was mainly a Becky team. I basically took Ben's team, and then I made some changes, and then but I was expecting the turn 3 Godcatcher nonsense. So I did bring my own Godcatcher just in case someone had that team, so I could use all their stuff against them.
So that's 3 cost. You
Yeah,
mean not the sort of 2 cost defensive one?
Not just the aggressive one.
Yeah.
Full fact one.
Yeah, because the turn 3 Godcatcher team, it brings you all the globals, all the basic actions you need to do it yourself. All you have to do is bring your own Godcatcher to be able to use that.
Yeah, that's good
so I did manage to pull that off in one game against Shadow Meld. So that was achievement unlocked.
Give someone a taste of their own Godcatcher medicine.
Exactly. Yeah. But other than that, it was a Becky Lynch build. I had Deadpool on there for support to get rid of Poison Ivies, which worked very well against Troy.
Why was that? What's his sort of special source that does that?
So yeah, Deadpool has a global that says pay a fist, deal 2 damage to target blocking character die, and stuff like Poison Ivy. She doesn't take damage from non-villains, but she does take damage from globals. So if she's at her level 1 or 2, where she has 2 or 4 defense, you can get rid of her with a couple of fists and then just Becky on.
Smart.
Yeah.
Becky on, indeed. Yeah. And then so you kind of Becky was your main win con. How did your games? What record did you finish, and what were the kind of highlights and lowlights of the various matches that you played?
I had 3 wins and 2 ties. So I tied
undefeated then.
Undefeated, yes, true. So I the first round I played against Epic Cat. I don't know his real name, but he played Godcatcher with under surveillance. But I stuck to my Becky for that game. First one I won, and the second one it was won by him. And then we had 40 seconds left on the clock, so that was it.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, we could have done a couple of rolls and maybe had someone win, because that would have been allowed technically under the system, but wouldn't have felt right.
Yeah, just playing a sort of 40 second. Yeah, because for those who weren't taking part, that one of the rules that they had was there was a hard kind of 50-minute time limit to play best of 3 games, and at the 50 minutes, if the game currently being played was incomplete, of course it was incomplete, because otherwise it wouldn't be currently being played. But if that game, the winner of that game would be the person who had the most life when the 50 minutes was passed. There was no turns or anything like that. So it was very much, if you started a game with a minute to go, if someone did 1 bit of psychic damage, then they would win that game, which was a harsh way of dealing it. How do we feel about that generally, guys, in terms of that as a way of scoring?
Didn't affect me in the slightest. You've got to play a team that finishes its matches in time, Peter.
Yeah. All of your matches took 3 minutes and 50 seconds or something, did they? So that was
a couple of them finished about 20 seconds before the time limit, but we got like 3 games in that time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I would. Yeah, you carry on.
Ben, how did you find that?
It sort of affected me twice. One less so in the last round. Actually, I lost in time, but I kind of knew the time was counting down, and the only way to do anything, it didn't actually functionally make a difference, but I was on 1 life, and I needed to do like a lot of damage to get there, so I pushed when I might not have pushed, but then he only had to do 1 point of damage anyway, so we got that through. But actually, in the first game against Elliot, I felt a bit like it was just bad because the time ended on my turn, and we were both tied at 19 life. So we played quite like it's a good 10-minute, 20-minute game, but we'd just not been able to do anything to each other. So last turn I pushed and did 16 damage, but it's difficult. If the turn ended on his turn, then he would be able to do some damage to me and do that extra 1 point of damage. So
yeah. And Peter, what were your take on that?
It only affected me in the very last match. I had won the first game, and then we were well into our second game, and then time was called on Andy's turn, and he was ahead on life, so he won that. there was a good chance he would have won that anyway, but I would have liked to have been able to actually play it out, because I did have some god catches in the field and some under surveillances coming up, so I might have been able to kill him. But I also didn't pay attention to time, so I might have been able to actually swing for a bunch of damage on the previous turn if I had realized it was my last, or maybe draw it out to make sure I had the last turn. But I don't like that sort of play style.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it lent itself to that. I think really it feels a bit wrong if you don't win a game. Surely you can't win a game, especially in Swiss, where I mean, it's not as if it prevented ties, which I think was a bit of the intention. Yeah. There's still a bunch of ties.
Yeah, it caused more ties.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
It felt a bit abrupt and harsh. It definitely led to some harsh situations. Yeah. Where if it's 19-19 going into does anyone deserve to win that? I mean, it seems wrong to just be able to do like 1 point of damage and take a game potentially. Surely you have to finish a game for it to count, unless of course it's in a knockout elimination style thing.
I think it's all an experiment, right? In their defense, because it sounds harsh. They were just trying to avoid the confusion that arose in the MOD PDM at UKGE thing, where I can't even remember what the rules were, but the rules were slightly different. Yeah, and you had to distinguish between a proper win and not a full win,
not an actual win. Yeah,
yeah, but then you could still get a ticket for the raffle if you won on live, but it wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's why they did it, right?
Yeah, that's why they did that.
Yeah,
I think if you don't win in time, it's not a win.
Yeah, is there a better way?
We've seen that, haven't we? And as you said, James, that if you don't a kind of a timed win doesn't count as a full win unless the game is currently tied when you're playing that game. So if it's 1-1, for example, and then you might maybe use that just as a way of settling who is the victor. But and I can totally understand why they've done it, because you go into events where you play 5 turns at time. It can take another half an hour. Yeah. And then the rounds just end up taking forever. So I totally understand why they wanted a bringing a way of doing it. They tried something a bit different. I think maybe the feedback from most people, particularly people who have been on the receiving end of a negative result as a consequence of it, probably would say let's not do that again. But credit to them for trying something new, and it just kind of gives people a different option if they want to use something like that in future.
I'm glad that people have been avoiding turns. I don't like turns under any circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely ensured that they didn't take too long.
Yeah, which was really good. The day really ran to time very well, which was excellent.
I think we just want, if the last game isn't finished, then it's just not finished, rather than
absolutely
not winning 0-0.
But yeah, so I mean that's a good kind of point going forward. James, should we move on to your team? What did you? Well, we know you played Godcatcher, eh?
I was short of time all round, so I decided. I knew that I was going to make since Patrick Barley Shadowmeld came second with Godcatcher in the previous big tournament. I had already arranged to make a video with him about it, so I knew I was going to make that video. So I had several reasons for choosing the Godcatcher. One of them was that I wanted to play it myself, so I could have a more informed conversation with him. Secondly, it looked like a smashy team, which was right up my street without any sort of control at all. And thirdly, as I already mentioned,
out of control.
Quick. Yeah. It's quite quick. So I got breaks, so I copied, almost quite literally copied the team link for Patrick's team, and then just adjusted the dice numbers and changed literally one card, which was he had Storm, where he had previously had Arnim Zola, and I swapped it for Grell, and I'm not sure I bought it. But I probably should have done.
Is that the 2 cost with Deadly?
Yes, it is. Anyway, it's a fast team basically. We won't go into the details. You can, I think, you can watch the video. but basically, it's capable of winning on turn 3. It takes out sidekicks with the Hawkeye Global, and it sets up potentially two gold catches and another action die. For example, Navarro's Broadcast to cancel people's static field, and you can get that out on turn 3 with some luck. Not that much luck. I mean, it's relatively. It happens like several times, and then if it doesn't happen, then the game becomes more interesting, and you start this sort of tactical battle, or if you're playing against Ben, you get your ass smacked, and rightly so. So that's what I played.
Now, but you, interestingly, because I mean, we'd obviously tested a little bit beforehand, and one of the cards that you had on your team when we tested was Under Surveillance, the basic action card that makes a character unblockable for a particular turn. Now, you took that out. What was your thought process there? Because I felt before going into the tournament that was a Nefarious Broadcast, Under Surveillance, and Godcatcher was pretty unstoppable if people could line it up right. But
I find these questions about thought processes uncomfortable.
Because you didn't put any thought into it.
There was literally no thought process. I've told you already. I just copied the team link and changed one card. That's all I did. I didn't really put any thought into it. I can give you my retrospective thoughts, which is that I probably, but Patrick would defend his choice. Does in fact defend his choice of Villainous Pact, because Villainous Pact you can actually use without the target. You can have you can have a Godcatcher die in the field, and you can trigger it by using Villainous Pact, and you can still get the sort of, it's not quite unblockable, but you get the benefit of the die, even when the Godcatcher token is not yet in the field. Whereas the other one that you mentioned, Under Surveillance, you can't. If you're using a second Godcatcher die to trigger the first, for example, or sorry, if you're using Under Surveillance to trigger the first Godcatcher die, you can't make the Godcatcher token unblockable because it's not there when you're using the action die. So there is some logic to it, and that was an experience that I had. Actually, I saw it from my opponents. I played against Ryan Raw Travel, who he had a Godcatcher team with exactly that, and several times he had to make psychics unblockable in order to trigger the Godcatcher, which was then not unblockable, which seems a bit of a waste. On balance, I probably would. In retrospect, do you know what? I would try it out a bit more. I would be prepared to experiment with it. I would quite fancy swapping out Atlantis for Atlas, so I get my prep global there, and then replace Villainous Pact with Under Surveillance. But I think there is some sense in what Patrick says, and actually, I don't think I've explored all the possibilities with this. I sort of picked it up and ran with it.
And went with it.
But there's actually there are layers to it. Having talked to him about it, there are layers to it which I hadn't appreciated at all. Being the shallow man that I am. I was probably a bit lucky. I'm quite good, and I was a bit lucky. I think that's what happened.
I think you're doing yourself a disservice there, James. You're clearly one of the best players in Europe, I think, as someone once described you. But no, because your record, you ended up 4-1. The only game you lost was to Ben, and second place. I mean, you can't feel too shabby about that.
I think what I quite enjoy, apart from really big smashy characters, I quite enjoy not preparing for stuff and doing it on the fly. I get a bit of a kick out of that, I think. Not in a silly way, but in a I enjoy reacting to situations as they come up. Yeah. And it's not the way to win tournaments by any means. And I think, and in that sense, I certainly was quite lucky. But I think I'm quite good at doing it on the fly, but it's never going to be quite good enough to beat people like that. If you want to know who I played against, I played against 3 Becky teams. I didn't realise, but I was just looking through them. I played Stuart, who had Becky, and unfortunately, I beat Stuart rather quickly. And I'm sorry, Stuart. And then I played Ryan, who I said he had a Godcatcher team with the Under Surveillance. That was quite fun. People are quite down on these smashy turn 3, but but it doesn't always go off on turn 3 by any means, and very often when it doesn't, it turns into quite a normal tactical match, and I genuinely enjoyed it. And then Ben beat me roundly with lots of sidekicks and Gazer. I played 3 teams with Gazer, and Ben used it properly. Then Unknown Force was a fun team who I don't think he was quite expecting the speed of my Godcatcher team, and and he was a bit shocked by the whole Villainous Pact thing. Villainous Pact is cool because it is cooler than Under Surveillance, because Under Surveillance is kind of obvious, but Villainous Pact, a lot of people just use it for the global, so it's quite cool to use the action.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Which says what? We should probably tell people what it actually says, because they might not necessarily. Probably a lot of people won't realise.
Oh, yes, sorry. Your opponent chooses 1 non-villain character die. All other non-villain character dice cannot block this turn. So it turns, once you've got 2 Godcatchers in the field, one of them effectively is unblockable.
Yeah. As long as they haven't got loads of villains. But there are not that many villains in the meta at the moment, aren't there, really?
There's not.
I mean, Poison Ivy.
Not a lot, no. Not even people
Poison
like
Ivy?
Typhoid Mary. I didn't meet any.
No.
There were 3 Becky teams and 2 Godcatchers. The last one was Shadow Meld himself. So it seemed extremely fitting that I got to play him at the end. And of course, it's a bit of a lottery if you both know what you're doing. And we both missed lots of rolls in the first game, and I managed to win in the end. And then in the very final game, I turn 3'd him with his own team, which was very crazy.
Hoist by his own petard.
Indeed.
As you might say. Okay, excellent. Well, congratulations, James. 2nd place. Can't be sniffed at. Ben, let's turn to you. You were playing a Becky team, right? What were the main components of your team, and how did you go about deciding what to do?
Yeah, so basically the main components, I think when I played James, for example, I think I bought maybe Gazer and Becky, and that was it. Most of the games I only bought 2 or 3 dice. It was Becky Lynch, Atlantis for ramp, and then kind of just tech pieces. I had both Eddie Guerrero and Istratorn to get rid of static field.
Which Atlantis did you use?
I used the 2-cost one with the global, and the one that you can send anything you roll to the prep area.
Did you mainly just use it for the global?
Yeah, no, a couple of times. It's good to buy early. I think this is a Peter trick, or someone, Jesco maybe. You buy the Atlantis turn 1, and then turn 2 you can send all your sidekicks to the prep area, and then the third turn you're rolling everything. And you can buy a bunch of stuff. And then I had Danny Moonstar as a backup win condition, which worked pretty well in my first game against Joe.
The one that re-rolls opposition stuff that blocks it.
Yeah. So against Joho from CR Game Room, he shut down my Becky Lynch basically with a Drax, and then he started fielding a bunch of stuff, and then I just used Danny and Booker T in tandem and re-rolled all his stuff and did 16 damage to him that way, which was good.
Ouch.
And then the other 2 pieces were Drax and Typhoid Mary, which are like some of the only Infinity Gauntlet stuff I have. So they're just both control pieces. I didn't really use them that much until my last game. So yeah, it was just kind of Becky's death by very little, and then Atlantis as much as I could, which worked pretty well against all the Godcatcher teams I faced, because I think this kind of Godcatcher nefarious broadcast works, but doesn't work so well when you can build up a really big field. It kind of slows them down quite a bit. And then you can take advantage of that, because then they have to start thinning their field out by putting out sidekicks, and then your Becky can obviously do damage if they start fielding stuff.
I mean, Becky, I guess, is the ultimate kind of, as we've said on this podcast before, the Swiss Army knife, really, isn't she, in terms of all the different abilities she's got with the re-rolling opposition stuff, and having Overcrush, and having the prep.
Yeah, I think people are talking about how Godcatcher and Becky are kind of dominating, but I think there is starting to be that kind of trifecta, because I really struggle against Thor teams, Super Red Thor teams with Becky. Right. For whatever reason, that doesn't seem to work quite as well. So General Nemesis gave me a real good game that last game.
That was a cracking game, because you won your first 4 rounds, didn't you? And then you played against General Nemesis in the final round, and that ended up 1-1, right?
Yeah, just to brag a bit, like the 4 people I played, so 2 to 4, 2nd to 4th place, I played everyone. and then I played 6th place, and then I played 13th place. So I did not have an easy run of it. That's for
You
sure.
had a pretty good strength of
I
schedule.
didn't play
Yeah. No, I didn't. So that's because Peter's beaten me lots of times. So I'm glad I didn't have to play him. Because you also had Thor, right?
No, I was running.
Well, you didn't run Thor this time. For some reason, Thor seems to work very well against my Becky anyway. So I have to think about ways around that. But yeah, no, it was a good tournament. I think I played very well in that last game, apart from making a big mistake. I played in the last game, the very first game, the last round, the very first game.
Yeah.
I think I played very, very well. Because General Nemesis had me down to 2 life after like turn 5 or something, and then I came back from like having nothing to winning.
Yeah.
But then in the last game of that, I had both Drax and Typhoid Mary, which was one of the only times I bought both of those things. Got them out really quickly, and then with both of them, named Super Rare Thor, which was a mistake because that gave him access to the rare Spider-Man, which was his removal option, really. So I should have Draxed the rare Spider-Man, and Typhoid married his Thor. But obviously that was the power of the Thor had ingrained in my psyche. That kind of focused all on that, which was a mistake.
Yeah, they were great games though. I watched those games on the stream, and I think they'll probably be available for people to watch on the Roll for the North, on the DM North website, because I think they are prepping the games that they streamed, and it was a really good nip and tuck match. You know, both of you kind of had moments where you missed stuff or things didn't go to plan, but you know, both games were really close and could have easily gone either way.
Yeah, you have to just make the best of bad rolls. And that kind of happens with ramp. And Atlantis is really good ramp if you invest in it early enough. You can churn through your bag quite effectively, especially if you don't buy it. Like against James, like I said, I only bought Gazer and Becky, I think. And that was it.
Yeah, because it's pay a shield and pay a fist, and you get to prep a sidekick and field a sidekick, isn't it? Or the other way around? I can't remember.
No, that way around, yeah.
And you used it. I mean, I remember there was one point in the game where I think you missed on a Becky. You were very much on the back foot, I think. You missed on a Becky, but you were rolling. You'd rolled loads of energy. I think you had about 6 energy or something. But you decided against. You could have prepped and bought another Becky, but you decided against it. And I think you basically just used all your energy to do the Atlantis Global. Or just wondering what you were thinking at that point, because I would have thought most people probably would have just gone straight for another Becky.
Yeah, no, I think so. If you think about it this way, if you have to fill your bag with all the dice, and you just prep the Becky, you're probably going to get a Becky plus 4 dice. Whereas if you churn through your bag, you're going to get that Becky you just missed plus all the other dice you churned. So either way, you're still getting one chance at a Becky, and it's worthwhile having the extra energy in case you miss again. And it's just kind of that persistent thinking is, if I have a state where I can win, how can I get back to that state quickly enough with what I have already, rather than buying new stuff? Because buying new stuff generally affects the number of dice you have in circulation, which generally affects how well you can get back to those winning states.
Yeah. And any particular sort of standout moments, would you say, that that you encountered over the course of the day?
I think one of the things that I liked the most, I don't know if it was the best move of all time, but it was kind of an interesting thing that happened in round 4 against Andy in Richfield. On my turn 1, I kind of missed my rolls. He was playing a Godcatcher team with Under Surveillance, actually. So I bought his Under Surveillance turn 1.
Yeah, right.
Which kind of, because I missed, I got a Bolt and something else, and I could have bought an Eddie Guerrero, but he didn't have static field, so it felt a bit pointless. So instead, I used his Thor Global to buy one of his Under Surveillances, which actually in the first game made him panic a bit. So he, instead of buying a second Godcatcher, he bought both his Under Surveillances. So he bought one Godcatcher and 2 Under Surveillances rather than 2 Godcatchers and 1 Under Surveillance.
Yeah.
Which kind of threw him enough for me to win that first game. And in the second game, I sort of did the same thing. And he pivoted to buying Super Rare Thor, which gave me more problems. But actually, put him off the quickness of the turn 3 Godcatcher, which let me set up a bit better, which was an interesting kind of back and forth. And I like buying other people's dice out from under them, and then that kind of panicking them.
The fear of that you might buy the stuff that they need was enough to force them into doing something they didn't want to do at that stage.
Yeah, maybe in the future I might have bought nefarious broadcast off people to see what they did with that.
Doesn't really need more than one though.
No, yeah, that's the thing.
I also played against Andy, and I bought 2 of his under surveillances. And, in the first game, he kept he stuck to his Godcatcher, but he only had the one under surveillance, so I had the advantage there. In the second game, he pivoted to his Becky, and then I was in trouble.
Yeah, he had a fun team where he just had a bunch of win conditions and sort of just chose whichever one he felt like would be best against people, which was kind of interesting. Yeah, one of the things probably we should talk about is the surprising amount of globals and the fact that no one even tried. Did anyone even try to run Pip the Troll, the one that makes globals more expensive? Or it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I bet Troy did.
I've noticed that actually. There is, I think that the good people at DM North have produced a spreadsheet, kind of analysing all the various teams, and they've got some. Obviously, it brings up some of the most popular cards, which we can talk about in a sec. But yeah, you're right, Ben. It says that the average globals per team was 4.7 apparently.
Yeah, really high,
which is a hell of a lot. I mean, that's like basically on average half the cards that everybody had on their team had a global.
Well, like really Peter said with his team, like if people run the Godcatcher turn 3 team, then you can run your own Godcatcher and do it back to them because they give you all the globals. It's a bit like the Vicious Struggle of old. Mm-hmm. You can sort of just play against them with their own stuff they bought you.
Yeah.
I've just searched for Pip in the document and there are no results. So I guess nobody did play Pip.
Really, no one played him. That's really interesting. I mean, I wonder whether it feels like, I mean, I guess in terms of purchase cost, being a 5-cost shield, the rare Pip the Troll.
I'm talking about the 4. I'm talking about the
4 cost. Sorry, the one that makes the globals more expensive. Sorry, yeah.
But also the 5 cost is surprising no one ran that because that seems really strong.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah, the one that rolls down 2 opposing characters when he's fielded, which is really good. But that is interesting. I mean, I wonder whether we might see a little bit more of that.
Wouldn't you rather just buy Becky though in that situation? 5-cost shield, and which one's going to win you the game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably Pip's downside is that he doesn't have the stats to back it up, even if he had a little bit of attack. So how did everyone feel about spinning stuff out? Because there was a good amount of that. There was Spider-Man and a lot of the Black Widow 2 costs, which I think is a bit surprising.
Doesn't touch Godcatcher. I was right.
Yeah, that's it. Peter, did you encounter much of that spinning down?
I played against the rare Spider-Man a couple of times. I think the Black Widow is not the best removal, but if you're just buying it as a source of masks and then you happen to remove something every once in a while, it's good. But you shouldn't focus on it as a removal tool, I think.
Yeah. For the benefit of those who are not familiar with that card, the Black Widow from the Infinity Gauntlet is a 2-cost mask with Energize ability. So when she rolls on her double mask face, which obviously is 2 of the 6 sides, it says that she can spin down an opposing character 1 level, and if it's already on level 1, it spins to energy, which is nice, but obviously only 2 out of the 5.
But there were as many Black Widows as there were Draxes, which is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah. So just kind of looking at the stats, I mean, the Spider-Man, the rare Spider-Man that spins down characters when he attacks, he was the single most popular card on all the teams. 13 of the teams brought him, which is interesting. Pretty much almost half of the teams brought a Spider-Man, which is interesting, I thought, particularly because, I felt the Godcatcher was going to be very strong. And in fact, I'd seen, I think someone on the day of the event posted in the morning, I wonder who is going to be answering the question, tell us about your Godcatcher build. later today at the conclusion of the tournament.
Where did that? I don't know.
I was sitting on my Godcatcher team.
When did Godcatcher become such a big thing? I was surprised. I suppose there were still 11.
It came
Beckys.
second in the MOD.
I know, but Becky.
And
why don't we Becky?
Didn't Alan Aycock win the
It's first time.
EarthX Origin.
Yes, EarthX Origins with.
Yeah.
I find it all right. I just don't think it's that good.
Yeah.
Just a big dude.
I think it's a bit of paper, stones, paper, was it? Paper, rock, scissors.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I think people are very down on, very negative about the Godcatcher. And I will stand up for the Godcatcher. I mean, sure, turn if you listen to me and Patrick talking about turn 3 wins, it is a bit sick. But it certainly doesn't always come off by any means. And when it doesn't, as I said before, it turns into quite an interesting game. And there are absolutely counters to Godcatcher, as Ben admirably demonstrated, and it's not even that complicated. And as Peter did to Shadow Meld, you can use their own globals against them, and there are other perfectly viable win conditions. And also Becky is also gross, so just leave Godcatcher alone. Stop whining.
Did anybody see any particularly interesting builds that they were surprised by or intrigued by over the course of the day?
I think the Super Thor thing has a lot of potential. I mean, it really is pretty disgustingly quick. I mean, with the amount of psychic making globals we have, like with Collector and both Atlantis and the Collector, you can get 10 characters fielded really, really fast. And he has good stats as well. So if you don't have characters in the field, they can just swing through. And because of stuff like Kree Captain and Clayface, you can get it out really fast. But any Icemans? No, right?
There were none. There were no Icemans. No Icemen, we should say.
Iceman.
No, I think Iceman is hurt too much by Thor, actually. Because if they get their Thor out, they can KO your Turk before he can go to your attack step.
That's interesting.
So that's that's become quite vulnerable. And also, I think that the addition of Typhoid Mary makes that team a little too tricky to make work.
Because only one thing needs blanking, and then you're covered, basically.
Because if they blank your Turk, then your Iceman doesn't do anything anymore. Mm-hmm. And if they blank your Iceman, then your win con is blanked. So then you're on the back foot, and you have to get rid of their stuff. And in the meantime, they're just kicking your ass.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, given what we've seen over recent tournaments. Obviously, we've had a bit of a glut in a way of sort of on these online tournaments, that we've seen quite a lot of the same players been playing. We've seen quite a lot of similar-ish kind of teams, but it seems like we've had a different winner each time. I think this is the first time that a Becky team has won any of these tournaments. Would that be correct? Can anybody help on that?
So. Yeah, well, I mean, you can go through them. EarthX was Godcatcher.
Yeah.
Dice Fight was Peter's Iceman, I think.
Yeah.
The last one was what was the last one? Was it Thor?
Yeah.
It was Thor, wasn't it? Because General Nemesis was Thor, and this one was Becky.
Yeah,
which seems fair.
And then there was the kind of one big weekend Corona consolation thing, but then the Becky and other stuff. Becky and Godcatcher were banned for that, weren't they? So maybe we shouldn't really count that in the sample size. But
I think Sorry, James.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask how does Thor deal with Becky? I mean, it's got static field, I suppose, for that aspect. Does it not get re-rolled? What goes on there? How to keep him in?
I don't know. For whatever reason, my playstyle.
It just comes back. So, you have a Thor die with 6 character sides. That's the trick.
It's a way to die.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of reasons why my particular Becky team, which definitely this was the most refined version of it. Before that, I was kind of messing around with Aquaman and Strike. I played the same thing basically every single tournament of those you mentioned. But this was the time I got rid of Aquaman because I decided that it just wasn't quite good enough and put in Drax instead.
Yeah.
But I think my Becky team struggles with Thor a bit, because a little bit of my playstyle, I'm pretty willing to take big chunks of damage. And Thor actually can produce quite big chunks of damage quite quickly.
Yeah.
And also because I provide them with Atlantis. And my Becky doesn't roll as well. But
yeah, I noticed that.
yeah, the other reason
you
is
missed her
because
a lot in that final match.
Yeah, that the dice don't like me. But those Becky dice, they're one of those dice that don't like me. But anyway, because you have to pass priority, if they get a big enough wall to stop Becky, it becomes difficult to pivot to Danny because they can ping that off before you attack with Danny, or if they have static field, then they can pick off Eddie Guerrero before the attack step, which is good as well. Yeah. So they have a lot of flexibility because you have to pass priority, and Becky does stuff in the attack step itself.
Yeah. We just need a card that says you don't have to pass priority in this turn.
That would be pretty
because
nuts.
They're fielding a lot of sidekicks.
I guess so, yeah.
Their Thor is coming around quickly, even if it gets rolled out.
Yeah, and then if you can trap Becky in the field as well.
Yep.
Which is static field,
which is good. Good. All right. Well, so where do we? Just finally, where do we think this kind of leaves the meta, for future tournaments? Peter, what do you reckon?
I think we will see similar things for the foreseeable future. Until we get the Dark Phoenix set, which might hurt Godcatcher a bit.
But I think it's positive though. I think there's lots of stuff that is the same, but actually, and I think Becky is really, really strong, probably too strong. But because we have a bunch of control and spinning out, I mean, there's a lot of just like you could run everything and just get lucky and win.
Yeah.
You could just buy a bunch of rare Spider-Man and cause probably a lot of havoc.
Yeah. I'd like to see him weaponized. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Three super strong teams is a lot better than one.
Absolutely. I mean, if we hark back to the half-elf bard or the US super rare anti horrors that we used to be facing, the meta is definitely in a better place, even with a much smaller card pool.
I think the problem is there's 3 really, really big cards that are really, really strong.
Yeah.
But the good thing is they don't really work together. That was a lot of reallys. But they don't work together very well necessarily. So it's kind of cool seeing the different kind of styles. So for example, Godcatcher under surveillance was the big thing a few months ago, and now it's Godcatcher with Villainous Pact and Nefarious Broadcast. So there's always refinements of those big things, which is good, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And there's definitely been kind of an evolution of these various win cons, even just over the last few months with the same sort of broadly similar kind of card pool that we've been fishing in. The teams have evolved, and the rock paper scissors thing thankfully is still alive and kicking when it comes to Dice Masters, and there isn't one kind of overarching team that's just smashing everything. So that's healthy.
And there's a few sort of left field things like Joe's collector team and stuff that's bubbling under. Maybe they're not on the same level as those 3 teams, but and I think there's stuff still to explore as well. Like that Spider-Man, for example, could be somehow turned into a horrible weapon.
Yeah, and then everyone's forgotten about Hope Summers, Rachel Summers as well. I could still...
I'm quite pleased.
Yeah.
I'm quite pleased about that.
I think the problem that she faces, obviously, is Nefarious Broadcast. I was thinking about those various teams before the tournament, and obviously that team is really stymied by Nefarious Broadcast because there's nothing you can do, is there? When you want to be using your global to knock out an excellent character, so you can use Rachel Summers to wipe out the field. But obviously, if they use a Nefarious Broadcast before you had the chance to do that, and you're stuck, you can't do it. So that is very much a hard counter.
But I think if you play it right, and then so everyone ran Godcatcher, or lots of people ran Godcatcher Nefarious Broadcast this tournament, but next tournament maybe they'll shift to doing Becky again, and then maybe you can get in that way. So I think it's interesting. I think it's kind of playing the meta right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we move on to a bit of spoiler chat? Before we go, I should just obviously congratulate you fine gentlemen again for a very fine display. It's great to see the DM United crew up at the top of the leaderboard, occupying most of the top spaces. Obviously, I wasn't able to play, and if I was, well, that wouldn't have made any difference. But so well done, and good to have you boys up the top of the leaderboard. Let's move on to the spoiler segment, shall we? Okay, well, in the last few days, we've been treated to a few extra spoilers from the upcoming Dark Phoenix set, which are all looking very exciting. And if you go to the DM United website, you can see that James has made a lovely, a gallery of all the cards that spoiled so far. So just pop over to dmunited.eu and you can see all these spoilers. We just thought we wanted to pick up on a few of those and have a quick chat about them because, well, not least one of them seems like it is going to change the meta quite a bit. Peter, we've got Moira. Are you able to tell us what the new Moira does?
So it's going to be the common Moira. It's a 2-cost shield character. And she has, while Moira is active, when an opponent fields a continuous action die, re-roll it. If it lands on an action phase, they may field it normally, otherwise send it to the used pile. So that would be a pretty good counter to Godcatcher.
Totally.
So that's going to make an impact because you can get it out on turn 2 if you have a Becky Global, and then they will not have any Godcatchers probably yet.
Yeah, it's going to mess up my Vibranium Shield strategy as well.
That's true.
I bet they had that in mind when they were making this card. So, I mean, is this going to totally kill the Godcatcher, do we think?
No, it's too specific. It's good. It's a really good card because it handles something very specific, which is meta impactful, but not everything. So, yes, it stops Godcatcher teams, but if you're not going to play any Godcatcher teams, then it's a dead card effectively.
Yeah.
Well, all Vibranium Shield too, obviously.
But there might be a really good continuous action in X-Men. You don't know that.
There could be, yeah, but it still doesn't do anything against Becky teams or Thor teams, for example.
True.
Talking about the current meta.
Yeah.
So that makes it a really good card because it does something very specific in a very strong way, but doesn't have a blanket kind of good effect.
But do we think though that just the threat of it though will just put people off because it's such an easy counter? Obviously, it only costs 2. Godcatcher costs 3, so it's cheaper than the thing that it's trying to stop, which is kind of a nice situation to have if you're really wanting to counter someone. Do you think that the fear of people bringing it will be so off-putting for people who might be thinking about running Godcatcher that actually it will just kill Godcatcher teams dead in the water?
For a bit, and then they'll sneak back in.
Mm-hmm. It's potentially a little bit like kind of completely forget the thing from Guardians of the Galaxy that stopped Iceman.
Oh, the Nova Corps uniform.
Yeah.
Do you mean?
Yeah, it's a bit like the Nova Corps uniform. Yeah. It's a bit like the Nova Corps uniform, which stopped Iceman really effectively. The threat of that was used a little bit of world and kind of a game, mind game. Kind of, this would be good if people played it by me, but by other people also. So I think it might be a bit like this. So, do you risk taking it? Even do you risk taking Godcatcher because Moira might be there? And then if everyone's going to bring Moira anyway, do you just not bring it, knowing that no one will run Godcatcher?
Yeah. It will create a nice kind of bluff and counter bluff and people trying to second guess what people are going to bring because people will be expecting or not expecting, and they might think they might be able to sneak a Godcatcher team in because they think that, because we might find that in the first few tournaments where she's legal, actually virtually no one might even bring her because they just think, oh well, what's the point? Because no one's going to bring Godcatcher now.
Yeah.
So
I think the rare is also worth a mention as well as the counter to Godcatcher. It's the when fielded remove an action die. So she has a founder ability and she has a cool loyalty counter ability. I think we're going to talk about loyalty counters in a bit with one of the other cards. So I'll skip that, but that's also a good ability. But when fielded, you may send target action die from your opponent's field zone to their use pile. It's also another great way to get rid of continuous actions.
Yeah, and also a
Totally,
potential
yeah.
win con.
In itself with the secondary ability. Yeah.
Yeah. She's obviously 3, so she's slightly more expensive. But she's got great fielding costs, obviously 001 and low defense. She's quite nicely recyclable.
Yeah.
Pretty card too.
It is, yeah. Who is Moira? Does anybody know who Moira is? She seems to be wearing all these different outfits.
Moira
in the picture
McTaggart,
Yes.
isn't it? Didn't she go out with
Professor X.
Professor X?
Well,
Or she did in the cartoon.
wasn't he that Scottish cop?
What?
Oh, no, that's Taggart. That's Taggart.
Wow.
Oh, McTaggart. He's even more Scottish. Anyway,
I'm sure everyone's going to know that reference. Yes.
Yeah, so she and she's got the founder keyword. The founder keyword's obviously a new thing that is coming in the next set, which doesn't do. It's one of those keywords that doesn't really do anything on its own, but other things kind of trigger off it, don't they? So there's quite a few cards that we've seen.
There's definitely a lot of potential for founder if it has a good win condition, because there are some really cool like secondary abilities that have founder.
Yeah.
Like the beast is a cool ramp option.
Yeah, should we talk about that beast? Yeah, because there's a couple of beasts that have been spoiled. Ben, the uncommon and the rare. Do you want to pick one of those and read that out?
Yeah, I like the rare a little bit better. So when beast attacks, prep a die from your bag. The first beast die you purchase each game costs 1 extra, which make it 3 costs, which is the uncommon. And the uncommon says, while beast is active, when a character die with founder attacks, prep a die from your bag.
Yeah.
So a little bit, beast is a bit, the rare is a little bit more lone wolfish, but if founder is good, then that uncommon really becomes a decent kind of ramp option.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I think that's pretty exciting. Because I mean, just the fact that does the common Moira have founder or not?
I don't think so.
Does she not?
No,
so
only
she
the rare.
wouldn't help with that. It's just the rare that's got it. Yeah. But that could be pretty cool because obviously with a cheap source, because I think we've seen some of these cards in some of the sets where stuff, look, for example, the Captain Marvel rare, I think it is, in the Infinity Gauntlet that says when a character
Avenger
die deals combat damage, prep a die, but she's like a 6 cost, so
yeah,
it's not a good thing to use for your ramp engine because it's just way too expensive. You
have to ramp up to it to get to it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think the founder thing could be pretty cool. It'd be really interesting, and I think, like you say, Ben, it'd be interesting to see if there is a decent kind of founder type win con. We should talk about Gladiator.
Okay, so the uncommon says Overcrush. When Gordon Bennett Lilander is KO'd, put a loyalty counter. Oh my god, I can't read it. On Gladiator's card. Loyalty counters give a character die +1 attack and +1 defense, I guess.
It's it's like an XP token, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, it seems to be, yeah. And more interestingly, at least for me, is the global, which is pay a fist when you attack. Your character dice can't be the target of action, dice, or global abilities until end of turn. So that's the old Doom Caliber Knight global.
Yes.
Which nobody thought they would bring back, I don't think, because it was
super strong.
It was involved in some broken things.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it scares me a bit that this is coming back. I mean, obviously we've had Nefarious Broadcast brought back, which turns off globals when you roll it as an action die, but you got to buy it first. This is just coming on a global. It's just cost 1 measly fist. Peter, what kind of impact is this going to have, do you think?
It's going to be huge. Makes Becky so much better. It makes Godcatcher better. Yeah, it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. You think Godcatcher's going away? Well, welcome to my Scott Hall. I'll see your Moira and raise you 1 bolt. Bye, Moira.
I think this makes Becky's a real I think Becky's the real winner out of these.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
The fist kind of works with the Istrid Horn as well. It's already kind of a staple of the Becky team. And then if they stop the Becky somehow, then you already got the backup Overcrush on this Gladiator, and he has some kind of crazy stats as well.
Yeah,
0551
good field,
and
isn't it?
077. Yeah.
Yeah, which and the rare of it, which obviously is blank apart from the global, is only a 4 cost.
Four cost, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He's got some interesting sort of funky fielding though, hasn't he? Because he's 0 on level 1, 1 on level 2, and 0 on level 3, which is kind of intriguing, even though his.
So do we reckon that the common one? So the 4 cost is blank with the global.
Yeah.
The uncommon is 6 cost with Overcrush and an extra loyalty counter thing and the global. I reckon the 5 cost will just have Overcrush and the global.
I reckon it'll be an 8 cost.
No dice could cost as much as 8, surely.
No, that would be
2
ridiculous.
globals.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it's not 5, personally.
I think 5 with Overcrush and the global seems to be.
I reckon.
This is the height of speculation.
It totally is. It totally is. But I think that could be pretty cool. Now, while we're on the subject of cost, we've got to talk about one card that's been spoiled, which sadly we can't read the text of, which is really upsetting.
You can read one thing on it, and it's got everyone excited because you can read one thing about it.
Ben, which card is it, and what can we read?
It's a Supreme Intelligence, and it has the number 1 in its purchase cost, followed by the number 2, making it 12 purchase
12?
cost, which is pretty hilarious.
12?
12 cost.
12? So you haven't even got enough energy to buy it, even if you use all of your sidekicks, and then you need to buy like 2 other characters, which you then roll on both double energy to even get 12.
Unless it has something like Fabricate.
No, if it has Fabricate, I mean, it depends what it is, I suppose. It can't be that good if it has
dice is the same as the
Fabricate.
old one, so it has to have something decent as an ability.
It's going to have something bonkers as ability. You can kind of make out the lines of text anyway, and it doesn't look like Fabricate is part of it.
No, it doesn't.
So
It looks like there might be a word at the beginning.
looks like there's going to be a pretty mental ability on it. We hope so anyway. I hope it is worthwhile getting up to that 12 cost.
I think we should get the FBI to this and get them to. I was thinking about this when I was doing the spoilers. Yeah, exactly. Zoom in, enhance, pan, enhance.
Those machines that can put definition where it doesn't actually exist, where somehow they can. Sorry, Ben.
Sorry. I really would like some kind of just automatic win kind of condition.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow.
Yeah. When fielded, deal your opponent 20 damage.
Yeah, when fielded, if you have no other characters,
you win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody thinks that there's going to be some sort of cost reduction, but who knows? Maybe not. I mean, there is a 10 cost. Yeah, we've had a 10 cost promo card, haven't we?
Yeah, I do hope it's not a cost reduction thing. I hope it is just you have to work out how to get to 12, because that's going to be a really interesting team building challenge. It doesn't look like it has an energy type either, so it's just 12 generic, presumably.
Maybe, I don't know. No, because the dies.
It must be a mask. It must be a top of mask, but not necessarily, I suppose.
The 12's in a funny place, isn't it?
Yeah.
I reckon
maybe an early
if this is the first die you buy this game, bravo.
You could theoretically, couldn't you? You could have. Well, like, could you? No, because you can only get. Well, you could.
But of course, what we haven't mentioned though is the fact that this set, the Dark Phoenix set, in the form of the Dark Phoenix card, is bringing back another Yu-Gi-Oh global in the form of the Blue Eyes White Dragon global that says pay a bolt. This is on the Dark Phoenix card itself, on all versions of the Dark Phoenix card, which have all been spoiled now. Says pay a bolt and KO one of your character dice. The next die you purchase this turn costs 2 less to a minimum of 1. So. And that's you can use that an unlimited amount of times if you can afford to pay the bolt and knock out a character. So you could use 5 of those, and then you can buy it for 2. That's
just with your sidekicks. You'd have to have 4 sidekicks and 4 bolts, but then you'd have nothing to buy it with.
Yeah, can we do a challenge on here? So let's presume that the Supreme Intelligence is a 12 cost without any kind of requirement for specific energy type. You can have any globals you want. How quickly can you buy Supreme Intelligence without purchasing a character or an action? Just using the globals and the 8 sidekicks dice you have.
Oh, that's interesting.
It'd be interesting. People write in and let us know how quickly you can do it.
How quickly you can do it. How fast can you purchase a 12 cost Supreme Intelligence without buying anything else? Is that your?
Yeah, just the globals and 8 sidekick dice you start with.
I like that. Just sorry. Speaking of people writing in, Nick wrote in, and he said that your Hulk Dream Team doesn't work because of the timing. I forget what the details of it were, but I told him that it would break your heart, and he said, "Well, that's why I wrote."
No, it does work. All dice are moved to the.
No, because the deadly effect takes place after, when it's too late for things to happen. It's at the end of turn, isn't it? At the end of turn, if these have been engaged, and once it's happening at the end of turn, that's too late.
Oh, presumably. Okay. Anyway.
Sorry, listeners, if you have no idea what we're talking about, you have to go back and listen to. Was it the previous episode with the combos that weren't?
Yes, the things that we couldn't quite get to work. Yeah, indeed. I think that was episode 14. So do go and seek that one out. All right. Well, should we round up that little spoiler discussion there? We're looking forward to getting Infinity Gauntlet in Europe first, but then obviously now we're starting to get excited about Dark Phoenix too. So
I'm excited about everything.
Yeah, I can see it in your face, James. Excellent. All right. Well, let's wrap that up there. Okay, well, Spug and James here just to round off the episode, and we thought we'd better mention a couple of bits that James has been beavering away on the website. James, what have you been up to on the DM United webpage?
I have put together a spoiler blog. I think it was mentioned in the segment. What I've done is gathered together all of the cards that have been spoiled by various people, including WizKids themselves, and the MOD on the Britroller 6 blog, and probably others too. And I've taken them all and I've put them together in alphabetical order. So you've got the common, uncommon, rare, and super rare where they are, and wherever we don't have the spoilers yet, there's a blank, so you can see they're all nicely laid out and you can see what's missing. And if you've got really eagle eyes, you could probably work out the numbering and see which characters are missing. That's the next step.
That would be clever. That would be very clever. And you've also been doing some video work as well with some of the top tier meta teams, haven't you, that's worth pointing people in the direction of?
Indeed. After the previous online event, I asked Shadowmeld Patrick Barley, if he would like to make a video about his Godcatcher team, which came second there. And then he was away, so he couldn't make it immediately. And in the meantime, I actually stole his team and ran it at last Saturday's Roll for the North. And he, of course, also ran a very similar team. It's his team, to be fair. And so we had a very, very detailed chat about the ins and outs of that team, and you can find that in the form of a YouTube video. It's part of my Dice Masters Chronicle series, in which we're trying to track the big meta teams. So that's number 3. Check it out. Definitely
worth checking out, and you can find those either on the dmunited.eu website or by going to the DM United YouTube channel. Now, another thing that we have to mention is the worlds. Well, I kind of was going to say virtual worlds, but I thought I'd say worlds first, but then it came out a little bit wrong. But we've got worlds coming up. And actually, we've had, just in the last couple of days, we've had some kind of hot news on the worlds front, in that they're going to take place on the weekend that Worlds was originally scheduled to be held. So actual Worlds were supposed to be taking place in... Was it Memphis, I think?
No idea.
In the USA. Yeah, I think it's the same place as last time, Graceland. And it was due to be on the 9th to the 11th of October. That's a Friday to a Sunday. But obviously in August, WizKids decided that they had to cancel the physical event for obvious reasons. But the good chaps at the CR Game Room have announced that they are putting on kind of online virtual worlds instead, and that's going to take place over those same 3 days. So it's going to be a whole festival of Dice Masters with a side event on the Friday, the main Worlds event taking place on the Saturday, and then 2 additional side events on Sunday. Now, I don't think there's much in the way of details in terms of how exactly all those things are going to happen. And I think they might be trying to partner with people in various regions to make some of the side events happen in a way that's more friendly to the various time zones that are represented in the Dice Masters community. But certainly the main event is going to take place on the Saturday, but I think all the exact timings are due to be announced. So I guess us people in Europe will have to hope that they're not starting too late in the American day, so that we don't all have to stay up till about 3:00 in the morning to participate. But it should be great. They're going to be charging a kind of flat rate fee of just $8 to take, and that will enable you to take part in all of the events rather than.
Good deal.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So even if you need to take part in one, it'll cost $8. If you play in all of them, it'll still only cost $8. So that's just to kind of cover the price of sending out the prizing, because they've got lots of very nice looking prizing, including for the worlds themselves. There's kind of trophies and dice bags and loads of cards and dice towels and all that kind of stuff. But also the kind of main prize, I guess, for winning worlds includes all 4 of the full art basic action cards from the Infinity Gauntlet expansion. So that's pretty exciting.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think that the collectors will be, well, collectively licking their virtual lips, I suppose, or even their literal lips. I don't know. The prospect of getting all 4 of those. So yeah.
So just to be clear, that is we've got 2 clear weekends. As this goes out, there's one weekend, and then there's another weekend, and then it's what did you say? Is it the 10th?
The 9th to the 11th. Yeah, so it's Friday the 9th. It starts. Worlds itself is on Saturday the 10th, and then there's side events on the Sunday the 11th. So look out for more details. I assume that CR Game Room will be covering that off and giving more details in due course as to when, what times those things are going to be taking place. But that's something to get excited about and look forward to. While we're on the subject of the online dice, James, we've got Dice Fight, of course, coming up over the next couple of weeks. What's on the slate over the next couple of weeks?
On a slightly less grand scale, but no less entertaining, we have Dice Fight on today as we're recording this. You've got 10 minutes. The D&D is taking place, and then which is yesterday as you listen to this, if you listen to it as it comes out. I'll just shut up now. And then next week on the 1st of October, because it's the first Thursday of the month, we have the next Legacy event, which is Legacy 7. I believe. So in each event, all the cards and all the rarities of all the cards on the top 2 teams are banned. So that gets whittled down pretty quickly. So now it's the 7th. It should be starting to be somewhat orange, I would think, rather than red, although I suspect, as ever, there will still be some filth left. And then the week after that is the 8th of October, and that is literally the day before Worlds. So I imagine we will be doing full-on modern.
Yeah, that'll be a day for people to bring their best, or maybe even play something slightly misleading, a bit to put everybody off from what they might actually be playing in Worlds itself. Good. All right. Well, that's all on that. Now, just finally, we would really like to hear from you. What did you make of this episode, or anything else that we talked about in any of the previous episode? What do you think about the spoilers that have been coming out on the Dark Phoenix? Are there any others that have particularly caught your eye that you're excited about and you want to tell the Dice Masters community about? Then do let us know. Get in touch. James, where do people send an email to? What's the best way of getting in touch?
They can email us at hello@dmunited.eu, or they can get in touch through the Facebook page or by commenting on blogs on the website.
Absolutely. And if you like this podcast, then we would love it if you could subscribe using your favorite podcast app and even give us a favorable review, because that would be really nice. Or if you don't love it, then maybe just stay away from those rating buttons, and I'm surprised you've got this far anyway. So anyway, here's a big thank you to you for listening. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time. Until next time, bye.
Bye-bye. try and remember who I played while Peter's talking.
Yes, why don't you get your team up, James, and then at least you might remember what cards are in it.
Oh yeah, that's an idea.
By the time we come to you,
you think you're joking, but
yeah, no, I'm not.